I retired early when I was 47. I had been a proponent and follower of the FIRE movement, the financial independence, retire early, and my wife and I saved and invested for many, many years to reach that point. And after I stopped working, I realized that I hated it for a lot of different reasons. And I made a video about it almost a year ago about the 5 things I learned from retiring early. And since that video went live, it has been viewed over 400,000 times and has almost 1,000 comments. And I've learned a lot from interacting with people in the comment section about how they feel about retirement. And I've found that the comments fall in 2 camps. One is, you're right, I think we should all keep working. Working is stimulating. There are a lot of great things that come from work. And the other camp of people that say, I retired at 65 and never looked back. I hated who I worked with. I hated my job. Or people that said, I can't wait until I retire in 2 years, 301 days and 12 hours. People that were counting down the days until they retired. So I wanted to make a follow-up video to that about the case against early retirement, why it might be worth to wait. If you're considering retiring either early or in your late 60s, take these into consideration, some things to think about, because retirement is a big decision, especially if you're retiring from a career that you might not be able to go back to, and it might be hard for you to unretire. Some things to consider before you do it. And if you're a long way from retirement, think about these as you're planning out your retirement, because for many that you might not want to ever retire. Working is a great principle and it's something that gives us humans a really high satisfaction. So you might not want to ever retire if you can find something that you love that can pay you for your time. So let's talk about a few things. Number 1 is financial stability. The longer you work and save, the more, theoretically, the more stable you should be financially, the larger your portfolio should be. It gives you more time to build up a portfolio that you can live off. Also, the longer you wait in the US past 62, the higher your Social Security payment will be. So if you take Social Security at 62 versus 65, your payment will be lower each month. So the longer you wait, the more you pay into it, the higher that eventual payout will be. So retirement and having no income can put a strain on your resources on your portfolio, because you're drawing out of that every month instead of putting into it. Aside from the financial stability, there's also the psychology of it. When I retired early, I had a hard time not making money because, number 1, working was very satisfying, and also I liked having that money coming in every month and seeing my portfolio grow. And so I went from money coming in to only money going out. And that is a psychological switch that is not often talked about in the FIRE movement. It's not talked about in planning. The psychology of it, going from having money coming in to having money going out and having that immediate switch. So if you're thinking about retiring early, then consider having money that you're living off and start drawing that money out, so you can get used to having, at least taking some of the money out while you're earning and also putting some money in. Or set aside a lump sum of money and say, I'm going to live off of this money for a year, even though I have my income over here that might be going into somewhere else. I'm going to live off this lump sum of money so I can know what it feels like to be taking money out of my investments. The number 2 reason why you might want to delay retirement is social interaction and purpose. We like being around humans. Most people like being around other people, their family, their friends, their coworkers. For a lot of people, and I learned this from reading all of the comments to my previous video, a lot of people actually enjoy what they do. They enjoy who they work with. They enjoy working with clients and having meetings. Of course, there are downsides to working in an office and the politics and the meetings and all that. But generally, a lot of people like who they're working with. And if you don't, maybe it's time for you to reevaluate your job and your career and find one that you actually like. Because people can get a lot of satisfaction from finding a good work environment. And when you suddenly take that away, you're going from, especially if you have an influential job or a high-powered job, going from that to doing nothing, then that can be difficult for a lot of people. I know somebody who worked in an office and managed 150 people, had a great job, people respected him and looked up to him, and he had a lot of responsibility. He retired, he went from all of that to nothing, to gardening at his home, and he had a hard time adjusting to that because he went from the action, he was the decision maker. He had people that he respected him and that he respected in a great working environment. And then one day when he retired, he had nothing, and there was nothing for him to do, and he got kind of bored. So work, especially work that is satisfying and fulfilling, can provide a great sense of purpose, a great sense of structure and social connections and fulfillment. Number 3 is a big one, is healthcare costs. At least in the United States, most healthcare is paid by employers. If you're self-employed or unemployed or don't have a job or retired, you have to pay all those health costs by yourself, which can be quite expensive. It can be a couple of $1,000s a month for a family, and those costs just keep going up and up every year. If you're working at least part-time, then you can get that covered largely by your employer. So a lot of people that retire, especially retire early, will have a part-time job or job on the side just for the health insurance, because health insurance is so expensive. A couple of $1,000s a month for a family, several $100s a month for a single person. So if you're thinking about retiring at any age, consider having a part-time job just for the health insurance. Number 4, kind of related to number 2, is longevity and mental stimulation. There are several studies that suggest that when people stop working, they retire, their mental acuity goes down, and it actually can shorten your lifespan, unless you have something to replace the interaction, replace the social interaction and the stimulation that your brain gets from being active and engaged in something like work. So if you're not going to retire, if you're going to retire rather, then find something that can replace the social interaction and replace the mental stimulation to continue to engage your brain. Otherwise, your brain is going to turn to mush, and it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to not have things that are engaging yourself socially and mentally. Number 5 is pursuing passion projects. Sometimes when we're working, at least part-time, we have the money coming in that we can do some passion projects, maybe travel or work on our yard, work on our house, renovate an old car, whatever it is. Having money coming in that can help pay for all that, if you have a job that is flexible enough that you can take a vacation a couple times a year, then it's a lot easier to do those projects. So think about that money, that if you're thinking about retiring, that you can maybe work a little bit longer, use that money to do some of the things that you've always loved to do. Use those vacation days. Most Americans don't get very much vacation days, about 10 days a year. And those that we do get, most of us don't take them because we're a workaholic society. So before you retire, start taking all of those vacation days. Spend them all up. Take as many as you can, as many as are allowed, and use the income that you're earning, at least some of it, to do the things that you've always wanted to do before you retire. So these are just some of the reasons that I think the early retirement might not be a good idea. If you've retired early, or if you retired in your 60s or 70s, let me know what you think. What has been your experience with retirement? Has it been great, or do you agree or disagree with some of the points I've made here about why you should not retire early and maybe never retire at all?